All right. Thanks, Prashant. Now, let's go back to our big story. President Biden making a surprise visit to Ukraine. We saw him walking alongside President Zelensky in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. He also visited the St. Michael's Monastery. But before we discuss more on what's happening on the ground, let me go across to Stefan Korshak, Kyik Post defense correspondent, joining us. Stefan, thank you very much for joining us. This is a developing story. President Biden making this surprise visit because of security reasons. Very little was known about this. Give us a sense of what's happening on the ground. Where are the two leaders? Who are the people accompanying President Biden?
Well, regarding who's with Biden, we're still working on that. I couldn't tell you. They're in the central part of the city. They're near a memorial to people, soldiers who have died during the war that started in 2014. That's also the heart of the religious center of Kyiv, or one of. So it's a place that tourists actually go a lot during peacetime. I'm sure that the significance is that Biden is going to a place where the Ukrainians go to recall their war dead. It's very tight security in the center of the city. Traffic is awful. And it doesn't seem like that's going to change until Biden leaves. We don't have any information yet on when that would be.
Right. And it's quite clear that no one in the media had any tip-offs about this. Obviously, because of security concerns around the visit, there was an air raid warning which also went off some time back. Now that President Biden is here, he's walking alongside President Zelensky. Do we know how long will President Biden be in Ukraine? Will it just be a couple of hours?
That is the general opinion of the media here. The thinking is that it's just his handlers wouldn't allow him to be in a war zone for any substantial length of time. It's not clear what they're going to do besides come out in public and make it clear that the president physically is in Kiev. There's some speculation that there'll be some kind of announcement, some kind of public statement, but what that statement might contain, nobody seems to know, as far as we can tell.
Right. And give us a sense of the kind of announcements expected. We've seen the White House statement, and there the president has said that I will announce another delivery of critical equipment, including artillery ammunition, anti-armor systems, air surveillance radars. So could you give us a sense of what's on the cards? What has President Zelensky and the Ukrainian government been asking for from the United States over the last few weeks?
Sure. There are two items that are pretty much at the top of the Ukrainian request list. The number one item is artillery ammunition. And it's not just heavy artillery ammunition, it's mortar ammunition, it's grenade launcher ammunition, because right now the Ukrainians are dealing with very heavy infantry attacks, and you don't really take those out with precision long-range rocket strikes. You need just masses of ammunition. The Ukrainians are firing it off very quickly. They are asking the Americans for more. So if the Americans, which is likely, do indeed offer more ammunition, the first question the Ukrainians are going to ask is how much, and the next question they're going to ask is how long is it going to last? Because it's a very intense war, and ammunition is being fired off very quickly. The second top ask by the Ukrainians, without question, is fighter jets, or strike jets is probably a better way to put it. But the position of the Ukrainian government is that that is a goal that they intend to reach, but it's a process. So it would be a surprise for American deliveries of fighter jets to be announced, done, and completed today, but a step in that direction, perhaps training for Ukrainian pilots, perhaps lighter aircraft that might transition to fighter jets. That might be a possibility. But it's not as pressing as the artillery ammunition. Beyond that, the Ukrainians have been asking for a long time. Yeah.
Right. Stefan, do you also get a sense that while this is a strong show of solidarity by President Biden, visiting the Ukrainian capital, walking alongside President Zelensky, sending out a message to President Putin that we are together, we will continue supporting Ukraine, the Ukrainian people, still there is a need to do so. But at the same time, is the United States also nudging the Ukrainian president, the Ukrainian government, to agree to some sort of a diplomatic solution, a way out of this war as well?
They could be. It's one of those behind closed doors conversations that we aren't normally privy to. As you well know, the American formal position is that it's up to the Ukrainians to decide when and how they want to end the war. From a practical point of view, it's very widely understood that at some point between now and summer, the Ukrainians are very likely to launch a big offensive using a lot of this Western equipment, and probably more importantly, trained soldiers that have been practicing their warfighting skills in Germany and Britain and other places. And that force will be committed to combat, and nobody really knows how effective it will be. There are hopes by some that it will end the war. There are suspicions by others that it will do very little. So American pressure probably is put in abeyance a bit until this offensive is kicked off and the results of it are shown. If it shows big results, then probably that will trigger even more Americans to support. If less than that, then the Americans might start saying, again, behind closed doors, look, we're helping, but you can't get as far as you want to, so maybe it's better to start talking.
Right. I would also like to ask you about the Russian offensive. As we're nearing the anniversary, the 1 year of the Ukraine-Russia war, do you also see Russia stepping up offensive in certain areas along the Ukraine-Russia border? Have the missile strikes increased?
The missile strikes have not increased. They have decreased in terms of frequency and in terms of scale. The generally understood reason for that is simply that the Russians are very limited in the number of missiles that they can launch. Regarding cross-border attacks, really not substantial. There were a couple of villages, as I understand it, captured by the Russians in the Kharkov region in the north, but that seems to have been more of a diversion than a major attack. The Russians clearly are conducting a major offensive in several different directions, centered around locations that probably a lot of your viewers heard about, places like Bakhmut and Vuhledar, and those are in progress. The fighting is intense and it's ongoing.
Right. Stefan Korshak, thank you very much for joining us with those reports, with those views on what's ongoing as far as the war goes, and giving us a sense of what's happening between President Biden and President